Welcome to In Real Time, where we as Heights Church are inviting you in for real conversations about leading people, organizations, and change in the new normal. We're hoping that our real discussions about our church's journey will help you as you reimagine and rebuild yours. Craig here, and welcome to In Real Time, where we're having real conversations about leading people, organization, and change. And I'm really excited about today's podcast. We're going to be talking about game planning for the summer. If you don't know what that is, well, you're about to find out what that is. But before we get into that, I want to just say, if you have a chance, please hit like, subscribe, and the bell notification. Share this with all of your friends and families, because I know that it will be extremely helpful to them. And so I've got two co-hosts with me today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Well, it's good to be here. My name is Tim. I'm one of the associate pastors here, teaching pastor on staff, online church, men's ministry, and oversee facilities. Yep.
It's good.
Yep.
Good.
Good times.
What don't you do?
Music, worship.
That's true.
That's what I do.
That's true.
And
we're really glad about that.
I'm not doing it.
Well, I'm Ryan. I'm the worship pastor here. I oversee worship production and all that fun stuff. So,
Nice.
yeah, it's good to be here.
That's
Yeah, it
really
is.
cool.
I'm usually-
you have a lot to do with this podcast as well.
Usually I'm behind one of these
production and all that.
cameras.
That's right.
Hanging out.
We're glad to have
Thank
you
you.
back.
Glad to be back.
Really good stuff. So we're talking about the game plan today.
Yeah.
Very important conversation for us. We typically do this probably 3 times a year, sometimes 4. Depends. Oftentimes it can be 4. But it really is that time when we get to clarity about 4 extremely important questions.
Yeah.
So can you guys explain to me what in the world is the game plan if people
Yeah.
do not know?
Yeah, we're not going to get in the weeds because we've done podcasts in the past on the game plan. But as you may or may not know, a game plan just again gives us clarity, gives us direction, and we ask 4 big questions, right? And one of them is why do we exist, which includes our vision and mission statements. And then how do we behave? So that's like our core values. Leadership. How does leadership behave? Like what's that DNA look like? We also talk about in that how we behave is what do leaders do? That's the aspire, and that'll make sense to some. But and then what do we do? And that just kind of summing it all up, we help people follow Jesus. And then
That's all in that how do we behave situation.
Exactly. There's a lot there, but it's important. And that's our map. That's our
and if people are wondering like, I don't even know how to define that. Yes, you do. Just think of all of the things that you get frustrated that people do, and then make sure that let that be your guardrail for what you start writing down for how we will behave. Don't do this, do this instead. That's how you come up with that. Okay, good.
And then I'll just keep going. The last 2, and this is what we're really going to focus on today, is this section of how will we succeed. And these are 2, 3, very rarely 4, but usually 3 things that we're going to focus on and really put our energies to for this next season. And that comes out of a lot of discussion. We talk about in real time. We had this meeting today before we started filming.
That's right.
To discuss what our summer game plan is going to look like.
Exactly.
And that way, when that summer is over, we can look back and look at those things those targets, those goals that we want, and we can measure, did we meet the mark? Did we hit those things? And so, and then lastly, and that's kind of the 10,000 foot in the weeds, and then the 30,000 foot view is this last question. That's like, what's most important right now? What's our rally cry? What are people going to hear us, see us doing, hear us saying, see where our energy is? Like, what is that? Be? And that helps us be motivated.
So those are really good, and as we get into them in a couple minutes, then it'll become more apparent about what does the 10,000 foot level look like versus the 30,000, and I think it'll be pretty obvious. But I think it's important that we know that this is not a set of questions we ask ourselves every 12 months. It's typically about every 3, maybe 4 months. And seriously, the question of why do we exist, vision and mission, we don't assess that every 3 to 4 months. It just helps guide us. The leadership culture issues of how do we behave, those core values are not things that we continue to and just change and turn over every 3 to 4 months. Those are staying constant. And what we do, well, that stays constant. So these things are constant for us. We may assess those over maybe every 5 to 7 years. Do we think this still speaks about how we talk about vision and mission these days? But what does get assessed every 3 to 4 months is, how are we going to be successful in the next season, which is typically 3 to 4 months.
Yep.
And so now we just finished up a season, and it went longer. This was the winter months, and we've kind of really drug it out all the way now till June. And so we got 6 months out of it. But we did that because we've just had a lot going on, and we have not had a chance to really come back and really talk about this idea of what the summer would look like. But we did have 3 things that we believed would make us successful starting back in January. We've been leaning into these in this last season. And so we always want to do an assessment. Did they actually set us up for success for the next season, which is now?
Right.
And so we want to look at these and decide. These are basically long-term, broad, not long-term, short-term, broad goals for the whole organization. So how will we succeed? There's 3 of them. Tell us what those are, Ryan.
Well, one of them was deepening our discipleship. The second was establishing a culture of generosity and good stewardship. And the last one was growing our ministry partners.
So deepening discipleship, just in a nutshell, how do we think we did?
You want us to grade ourselves? That's kind of scary.
You know what? Yeah, if you don't, we're going to grade you.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. But we do want to have an honest conversation about, did we actually deepen our discipleship? And so we did. Right? We assessed what we did. And what were some of the things that we know helped us deepen discipleship? How do we know we did it?
Well, a lot of them, some of them on a level, I would say small level, but it's not, because we have so many life groups where conversations coming out of those life groups.
Yeah, like 60, 70. Yeah, that's a lot.
So these are one-on-one conversations, but there are a lot of them happening. So it was an indicator when they're saying things like they loved the deeper dive in their discussions that were coming out, like from Pastor Justin. He was challenging people at a deeper level in those questions and things that he would pass out.
Right.
We know that conversations like, we feel like our group is growing closer together. We're having deeper engagement in life and in their faith and their growth. So we heard things like that. I know that we spent time intentionally discussing our discipleship process, or our 4 areas of where we see discipleship. So we looked at those and strategically upped our game and put energy in those 4 areas.
Messaging those. Church.
And people, the feedback we were getting was awesome. They love the fact we took time to draw it out and that we programmed, I hate that word, but you know what I mean, like really engage them to be a part of that. So a lot of it was feedback. You could you heard it.
You heard it. You can see that it resonated. We also did some things in our lobby area. Ryan, tell us about that, because that made a difference too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, are you talking about the renovations?
Well, specifically what we put on the walls.
On the walls.
Yeah.
Oh,
the messaging.
The messaging.
So, okay, that's okay. In real time, he's like, where's he going with this? We actually put our discipleship.
I was going to say.
We put our discipleship process on the walls.
Oh, right.
So people can see it. It's like, hey, how do we deepen disciples here? Well, it's right there in front of you. This is what we use. We use our weekend services in order to introduce the topic. We use our life groups in order to deepen the discussion about it with friends. We have our chair time tools that we provide, so you can do your daily devos around that same topic. And so then we ask you to serve somewhere, and you're going to put these things to practice. And so that deepens the discipleship within our church. But we actually put it on the wall. We had never done that.
No.
So people are saying, what's this? Oh, and they're starting to connect the dots of who we are, why we do what we do. This is why they talk about groups so much, chair time so much, serving so much, because this is how we disciple each other. It's so good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's how we measured that.
That's it. Good. So we know we deepened discipleship. Establishing a culture of generosity and good stewardship. This is all about reestablishing our financial strength from the last 3 years. Because it was frankly devastating. And we are getting our feet back underneath us. And it's still an up and down struggle, but we're in a way better situation than we were. That's for sure. Yeah. And so we know, because our giving has started to level out, that we have made progress on this. And so that's what that's about. So we know that, we did see some success there. And that sets us up for the summer months, for people to be consistent and faithful. Yeah. And then growing our ministry partners. What was that one about, Ryan?
That was just kind of looking inwardly and just seeing the need for growing leaders, bringing people in. Who can we look around as we look around the church? Who can we bring in, disciple, and raise leaders? So I think growing our teams. I can speak for them, but my worship directors, my production guy Josh. I mean, they've done a great job building the team and building such a good culture of just serving. And so that was a need of ours. This last year was growing the production team, and he did a great job doing that.
That's excellent. Yeah, so we noted that some of our servers, those who served, volunteered. We know that whole thing was pretty decimated after the last 3 years of COVID. And so we were having to rebuild. There were many that said, I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to jump back in. But it was a train station. Some got off. And then a lot of other people jumped on and said, hey, I want to help. I want to be a part. I see the need. And so we were able to grow those ministry teams. You think something like children's. I think we started with 26 when we came back to in-person, which was 2 years ago. But still, that's a pretty difficult place to start, because she had 90 something, 90 plus prior to COVID. And then it started with 26, and she's back into the 80s at this point. So growing those ministry teams, because we have children that need to be taken care of and ministered to. So, all right. So that's what we looked at as far as how will we succeed in our last season. And we started assessing summer, which is a unique season. What were some of the things that we have kicked around today earlier that we think this could help us be successful in the summer to set us up for the next season, which would be fall? Because we don't want summer to just happen.
No.
We want to take advantage of the moment.
Focus on it.
Right.
One of the things I shared, I remember, was I was asking the question, what does our church look like outside of these walls? Because a lot of people are starting to come back to church. We've been doing really good. I mean, just from if you listen to the previous episode, the previous episode, we're talking about our stats, and we've had a good amount of growth. Just in not only in our attendance but our giving. And so one of the things I was really asking ourselves was, what can we do outside of these walls? How can we reach the community? We're in Citrus Heights. We're near all these other neighborhoods.
Centrally located.
And one of the things that we do really well here are those outreach groups like Trunk or Treat, Kids Camp that's coming up. We bring the community in. So how do we look outside of these walls of what we just do here on a weekly basis and reach our community?
That's a great one. And so we were asking ourselves, how would that be a part of a success here? Thinking that through, creating some opportunities. So that was good. What were some other things we were considering?
Well, we looked at the things that we do as a church in the summer. So we have our kids camp, which Pastor Jennifer does a great job bringing in community and our own kids and families. So we're like, okay, that needs to be a thing we should focus on. And then we have a number of student ministry camps and events that are happening. We have our men's event happening. And by the time this airs, it'll already had happened, but we have that hot on our heels in 4 or 5 days. And so we looked at maybe that is something that we say, hey, how do we succeed to make sure those activities and events are the best it can possibly be And I love the fact we even talked about that idea of evangelism or outreach to our community as a part of how do we blend those together? How do we get our community involved in our camps and kids camp and those things? And so that was one of the other ones as well, just focusing on those major summer events.
Yeah, no, and that's good because that helps all of us as a staff to get out of our silos and recognize that, hey, the success of my student ministries camp is great, but I want children's camp to be great. Is there a way I can partner? Is there a way I can support you with the men's? Is there a way I can support you with what you're doing, any events you're doing in worship, with a worship night, something like that, the women's, all of it. And it really helps us to see just, I would say, global Heights Church, the whole thing, come out of our silos and really work together and say we're not doing life groups during the summer, but we're going to be doing these events, which is what we often will do during the summertime. We do less events during the year, but we do a lot of events during the summer. Let's throw our energies there. Let's let those be super successful. And that's one of the things. If we can pull and really pour into each one of those events, then we know that that's going to set us up for success, community, new people for the fall. All that is going to be momentum.
And that's really what this section's about, right? How will we succeed? You know the pulse of your church. You know kind of where the trajectory of where you're headed. And then as a staff, because everybody's feeling it, you have that discussion and you pick those things out, like this is what we want to focus on and this is how we know we can succeed, and then set ourselves up for that next season. And that's just a collaborative effort with your staff, because we're all feeling it, we're all seeing it, and what ours are going to be different than what other churches are going to have, but it's theirs, and they
should be different. They have different opportunities,
and they don't need to be difficult. They don't need to be crazy. They can just be what is the things that mean the most to your church. That's going to help move your people, move your church, opportunities. And they don't need to be these things where it's hard to decipher, because you're going to want to go back at the end. So if you're setting your summer game plan, you're going to want to come back in the fall, and you want those to be able, you can answer them. That's great. And here's what's great. We did this today. We didn't just answer these questions. We actually celebrated the successes that we had.
That's actually a good point.
In reaching these
every
goals.
once in a while,
but
he
remember,
comes up with one.
There have been times when we hit those messages. There have been times when we're doing this. And we all are in that meeting going, we forgot about that.
We didn't
exactly. But that's cool, but that's part of the team, right? You win as a team, you lose as a team.
That's right.
And you dream as a team, and you cast that vision. And this time around, it was fun to be able to say, man, we did a really good job. What's next? That's the other part. What's next? How exciting is that? What's next?
That's right. And
moving it down.
This really is the next steps. That's how we need to think about what will help you succeed. And so that could be so many different things.
And that's why this is like 10,000 foot, because these are these are questions that are on the playing field.
Exactly.
You're right there. You know this needs to happen. So okay, and then another thing you would do, I think, when we're thinking about how we would succeed during summer months, is you really do need to do some evaluation of, honestly, what does your here look like? And what are your opportunities going to be in the next season? What are your resources? Those are important things to start counting right now. I think of the parable Jesus gave, don't start building a tower until you know how many bricks you have. Otherwise, you start building the tower, you run out of bricks. People are going to say, look at that. He didn't finish his tower. Know how many bricks you have and build a tower that high. So that's where we want to be. We want to understand our resources. The summer months is a perfect opportunity for that. Assess where we're going, and then set yourself up for the fall, and then get going.
Because you don't want your how will we succeed statements to set you up for failure. So that's why it's important to get the staff together and go, okay, here's what we got, here's what we're going. These things. And you don't, not that you don't want to reach out in faith and push and risk, right?
No,
but you don't want to be foolish,
So
I think that's why it's important to assess what you have, and then dream it and go for it.
I would say probably a first step for many church leaders, board members, if you're here and you're going, wow, game plan. We don't have one of those. Okay, step one, have one.
Yep.
Create one. That's what we would do. That's what your summer would be. Assess the answer to these questions. Why do we exist? How do we behave? How will we be successful?
Right.
What's the rally cry right now? What's most important?
Right.
Answer those questions. I promise you have answers.
Right. Yeah.
You will have answers to it. Get on the same page. Have that clarity together. Share it with your church.
Yep.
Get everybody on the same page, because we talk about this game plan, not just as a staff, but with our lay leaders. And literally with our church. We share this with our church so they know what the game plan is and why we're doing what we're doing.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. They love it.
I also want to point out, if you're listening in and you're hearing about this, notice how it's not a one and done thing. You just fill out the answers to the questions.
Yeah.
We're actually, like you said, we're taking every 3 to 4 months to reassess where are we at.
That's right.
This is something to keep you accountable to.
Right.
You know?
That's good.
That's why when I first got on staff, I shared in the last episode, and oddly enough, I think I was in that episode, but how this was used for not just the hiring process, but this, like you said, we show this to our church.
Yeah.
They could get a copy of this.
Right.
They can see exactly what we expect of ourselves as leaders, what we hold ourselves to, and where we're going as a church.
Yeah.
And
that's really good.
And I think that's such a brilliant way to be transparent, to build trust with your community. Right. And so this is not just a one and done thing.
Right.
We're reassessing constantly.
That's good.
What is going on.
Right.
Okay, so what's the last thing on here?
It's
called the rally cry. What's most important right now? We said be bold and dive deeper.
Be bold, dive deeper.
That's right. That's what we said. Hey, 30,000 foot level, what are we doing in the next month, next season? We're going to be bold, and we're going to dive deeper.
Yeah.
And we did it.
Yeah.
We did.
It was
make
required.
Some bold statements and movements.
To move towards how we succeed, we had to be bold. We had to dive deeper. We had to encourage our leaders to do the same.
Yeah.
I remember those conversations.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it was good. Galvanizing. Our people loved it.
Yep.
They want that. It's vision.
Yeah.
So helpful.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and so I think what I would recommend and just challenge anyone who's listening in today would just be to say, what is it that you can do in the next season that will set you up for success? How will you know you succeeded at the end of summer, beginning of fall? How do you know you succeeded during the summer? Well, go ahead and jot that down and then lean into that. Get everybody on the same page so they know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that I know will be really clarifying. Well, thanks, guys, for having a clarifying, good conversation in real time about leading people, organization, and change. And if you liked this episode, which I'm pretty sure that you did, share it with a friend, because I know that this is information that a lot of people could use. Hit the like button, subscribe, and the bell notification so you don't miss one episode as they drop. Thanks for joining us in real time. We'll see you next time.